I stand in front of the mirror, but it's Desira's reflection staring back. What has she done with my body? She went to Dr. Finley's basement, and there was Lucuas's dead body. Hijacked. See that star in the left-hand corner? Go ahead, click it. I think you're gonna like it. Finally waking from my not-so-peace-filled slumber, I took to the bathroom, cleaning myself of yesterday's disaster. The pain still stabbed through my heart, making me numb to the world around me. Feeling the scalding hot water cascade down my muscles, I couldn't feel the deep pleasure of relief. Normally a shower washed away the pain, the hurt. But not this time. This time I felt nothing. I know how you feel. Stopping for a second, shocked to hear what sounded like my voice speaking. I waited for her to speak, but all was silent. Must just be in my head, I thought. I am in your head. She sniped. Okay, who's in here? I said aloud for all to hear. But all was silent, making me agitated. I peeked out of the curtain, seeing absolutely nothing. Guess again. She mocked. Confusion took hold of me. What the hell is happening? No one is here, yet I can hear her. For hell's sakes, I'm in your head, Rose. She growled, giving me a headache growing like a tumor. The pain starting to scratch the surface. Who are you? I asked, playing this little game, starting to wash my hair. My name is Desira, and we have much to discuss. She flatly stated. Still feeling like a joke, I scoffed, starting to rinse my long, thick waves. Okay, Desira, what's to discuss? I half-ass remarked, scrubbing my body with my loofah sponge, when a shooting pain that felt like a hot iron landed on my head. A burning, stabbing pain so intense waves crashed upon me, like someone was pulling me, dragging me underwater just below the surface, until I stood in a dark hole looking out, watching. The water turned off, but not by my hand. The curtain swished open, but not by my doing. I could feel my feet touch the plush foot mat. My eyes looked forward, seeing my naked self in the large bathroom mirror. And Omani's face stared back at me. My face. What the hell was happening? You really should flaunt this body more. Her voice stated, drawing out the word. Really? She run her hands down my sides, admiring my fit figure, before wrapping her body in my towel. What's going on? I screamed into the pit of darkness, watching through my eyes, as if sitting in a movie theater, unable to control what was happening on the outside. Calm yourself, Rose, before I throw you in the dark mind maze and lock it. She hissed, brushing my wet hair. Today I need to run a few errands. She flashed a half smile as if she was remembered something. What errands? I questioned. She was bodyjacking me. I'm not sure how this happened or who she is, but I will be damned if she thinks she is going to control me. I needed to find a way out. Just some errands. She spat like a mean girl to a nerd. Bitch. She took her time dressing in the most provocative way possible. Her tastes were like a biker beach chick. She paired my black leather jacket with a white tank top, a V-cut in the chest, revealing the top curves of my breasts, while a see-through design ran down the center. She found a gaudy black leather belt in the back of my closet, pairing it with the shortest shorts I owned. Rips crossed the front, while the frayed edging covered very little. She found my jewelry box, placing 7 silver rings upon my fingers, then looped, for necklaces of different lengths, around my neck. One had be a choker from like the 3rd grade. Not at all my taste. Slipping my feet into black boots, I finally saw my appearance in the closet mirror. I looked hot, but still. This wasn't me. This was her. Finally, something that fits me. She praised, admiring her style. You look like a tramp. I sassed, thinking of a way to get out. It's better than your church style. She argued, grabbing a black purse my mother gifted to me, still new with the tags on it. Where are we going? I demanded, stomping my foot, causing her to grovel. That must have hurt. Did now quit it. She quipped, leaving my room, avoiding my question. She smoothly stepped down every stair in full control. Thank God my parents were at work, or I wouldn't be allowed to leave the house. Who knows how Desira would have acted towards them. I felt the cool keys in the palm of our hand. As the door swung open and shut, Desira swayed her hips to my Jane. If you hurt my baby, you're dead. I spoke with an ounce. Nobody drove Jane except for me, and Dina. I trusted her. I watched her eyes roll as she scoffed. She began to drive, turning the music to a rock station. my guess to drown out my nagging questions. Watching, I started to notice where she was going. Why we were going there, I wasn't sure. When the lake came to view, she drove, pulling into Dr. Finley's driveway. Why are we here? You'll see. She knowingly spoke, pulling one of the black roses from a vase. When did she grab those? She hopped out of Jane, landing with a thud from my boots. I could feel the smirk she held steady upon my lips. What was she up to? When she walked past the front door, heading to the house's side, the smell of peppermint took over my senses. She crouched in front of the red cell doors, padlocked. To the right, under a fake rock, lay a key. She opened the lock, placing her hand upon my handprint. You were so close to finding out that day. She trailed off, stepping into the darkness. With the flick of a switch, the lights illuminated the basement. Why are we here? I asked again, until her gaze landed on a very dead Lucuas. I felt the blood drain from my inner face. His blood coated the flood. A large slice from ear to ear indented in his flesh. The sight of him made me want to puke. You know, this was your idea. She praised me. The black rose, not Lucuas. She clarified. I stayed silent, too nauseated to speak. The black rose you laid on James's grave seemed fitting. She cooed, enjoying the sight before her. She lay the black rose across his chest. After all, he was my kill. Hearing her confession made my blood boil. Since the day he died, I felt nothing but loss. And now at this very moment, I felt nothing but rage. This psychotic bitch murdered my love. I wanted nothing more than to cause her pain. Feeling the fury within me build to a roaring fire, I fought her hold, running directly at her eyes. With every thud of my foot, she cringed. With every step I took, the more pain she felt. Until the familiar feeling of water crashed upon me. I swam with all my might, reaching for the light above the surface. I gasped for breath, pushing my limits until I felt the air brush my face. Opening my eyes, I stood over Lucuas's body, and I was back in control. Standing in a panic, I ran, leaving the cellar. Not bothering to close the doors behind me, I scurried to Jane, pulling out of the drive, letting the wind rush through my hair. She killed James. I whispered into the wind. Sobs of anger filled my lungs. She killed the one person I felt the safest around. She took the only thing keeping me sane, his love. If it was that easy for her to kill James right under my nose, what about my family? She killed Lucuas. What about my brothers? What about my parents? I can't stop her. I needed to leave before she could take control again. Leave to protect my family. She was a monster hell-bent on killing. A thirst for blood I could feel rolling off her. Forcibly taking control must have sedated her. Because her words were silent. I quickly pulled out my phone, calling Dina. I needed her. I shouted into the phone. Rose, where are you? You didn't pick me up this morning. She yelled into the phone. I will tell you in 10. Meet me outside the school. I commanded, hanging up the phone, not giving her a chance to tell me. No. When a thought popped into my head. How do you run from yourself? Running. Pulling into the lot, Dina stood on the steps, a bag draped from her left shoulder. I stopped for a quick second before she hustled to the Jeep. Tossing her bag in the back, I heard a thud, causing me to turn around. A pair of black roses lay flat, reminding me of James. Her bag tipped the small vase of flowers, the water pooling in the crevasses of Jane's leather. I mentally scolded Dina, while she shrugged innocently at my annoyed face. 2 roses left. Did that mean Desira has plans to kill 2 more people? I needed to get out of here. I needed to protect them, all of them. We pulled into my house, both Dina and I jumped out, running to the door. I sprinted to the closet in the back of the kitchen. My parents had a safe, filled with money from the shop's business. I took the black purse still draped over my shoulder from Desira, placing wads of cash in my bag. Dina stood behind me, probably to chastise me. I grabbed around $10,000 in my important documents. Shoving everything into the black purse, I shut the safe, turning to Dina. She looked cold, like she did the day Eros tortured her. Shit, Eros. Dina, I'll explain in the Jeep. I rushed to her, sliding my hands down her arms to grip her fingers. I need you to trust me, I asked with pleading eyes. She nodded her head, understanding what I was asking. I took hold of her hand, dragging her behind me. There was no going back, this was it. I stole from my parents, I took my documents, I killed Dina, and I took a ride, heading into the city. I needed to make sure once I left she was protected. I explained everything to her. As crazy as it sounded, divulging all my dirty secrets. It didn't matter if she tattled, I was leaving, and they would never find me. She was shocked to say the least, and I told her I was in control, but I didn't know for how long. We pulled into the city, stopping in front of a tattoo shop. Looking around, this place looked familiar until I saw what it was. Across the street sat an old rundown shop, the faint outline of Madame Tanda's sign fading. I wonder why her shop closed down. I thought to myself, feeling an itch in my brain. Shit. I need to hurry. Dina followed me into the tattoo shop like a lost puppy. I didn't blame her, I threw a lot at her in less than an hour. It was a lot to process, and I'm hoping she's going to be okay with this as well. Can I help you? A gruff fat man coated in tattoos asked. His head was as bald as a baby's butt, while his beard looked long enough to braid. Yeah, we need a tattoo, I said, gesturing towards Dina and myself. The fat man chuckled to himself, eyeing the pair of us, catching the attention of the other guy currently tattooing a biker. He looked younger, like an e-boy with his dangling earring. The fat man spoke, pulling my eyes back to him. How old are you two? He asked. He knew we looked underage and I looked like a slut in this outfit. So why not use it? I walked to his chair, pulling out $2,000. He eyed the money, then looked back at me. I puffed out my chest, dragging his eyes to my cleavage. 18. I smirked, knowing he's going to take the money. The fat man looked at his partner, mulling over the idea, until he looked back to Dina and taking the money from my hands. What do you want? He asked, counting the money. I asked for a pencil and paper, sketching the protection sigil on it. Eros would never be able to haunt Dina ever again. Better yet, he would never be able to enter my mind again. This wasn't some marker upon our skin. This was permanent, protecting us until death. I handed him the sketch, having Dina take a seat. Where do you want it? He asked, eyeing her. She looked at me dumbfounded. This was my idea. She was just going along with it, so I spoke for her. Back of her neck, small. I pointed around the area. Dina always wore her hair down, so the tattoo would be easily hidden. Okay, was all he said before getting to work on her tattoo. I held her hand, watching as she gritted her teeth. The pain level she was feeling was pretty high, considering it was on her vertebrae. But she knew as well as I that was the perfect place and it needed to be done. The fat man finished hers, and the look of relief on her face was priceless. Now it was my turn. Stripping my jacket, we traded places, face down on his chair. Where do you want it? He asked in a monotone voice. I answered back, the same as he, left shoulder. He got to work preparing my skin. It was almost relaxing. He turned the gun on, and the sound of buzzing filled the space. The spikes of the needles hit my flesh, causing pain to shoot through me. When a familiar voice echoed in my head. What are you doing? She asked. I tried to ignore her, but she kept nagging, giving me a headache. Getting a tattoo. I plainly stated in my head, answering her. Of what? She asked impatiently. A protection sigil from Eros. I told her, still talking in my mind, when a stabbing pain crossed my temples. Dina. I gritted, trying to fight the pain, holding her hands as she crouches down, looking me in the eyes. I'm here. She whispered back. She's fighting me. I groaned in pain, trying to build a brick wall to block Desira out. Hold on, Rose. Dina encourages, squeezing my hands for support. The tattoo needed to be finished. I couldn't let her win, not yet. Not until he's done. As if understanding my pained face, Dina asked the question. Are you almost done? Yeah, he grunted. On the last line. Okay, last line, hold on. He has to finish. I kept repeating to myself, squeezing Dina's hands. The pain became more than I could bear. But I couldn't let go. It was like she was stabbing my brain with a knife, over and over again. Black dots started to cloud my vision. The last thing I remember was the swipe of a cold rag, brushing my irritated skin. Hello, Dina. Dina POV staring into the eyes of a devil. Desira squeezed my hands, unbearably tight, bringing my full attention to her heated gaze. Hello, Dina. She addressed me, tilting her head to the side, scanning my face. I'm shocked to say the least. I have never met her and Rose didn't tell me Desira knew me. I tried to pull my hands from her vice grip, but she squeezed even tighter. So tight my blood flow was cut off, my fingers turning a ghostly white. How do you know my name? I asked, curious as to how much she knew of me. She scoffed, rolling her eyes, and sat up. The tattoo artist, having no idea what's happening, eyed us warily. She slung Rose's leather jacket over her shoulders, flinching as the fabric hit her skin. It doesn't surprise me you don't remember me, she half sassed, pulling her left shoulder from the jacket. She looked at the tattoo from a mirror point of view, in disgust, mumbling curse words to herself. When would I have ever met her? How long has she been in Rose's body? Has she ever pretended to be Rose? All these questions flooded my brain before I locked eyes with her. I'm sure she saw my utter confusion, while she readjusted the jacket over her shoulder, slinging the black purse over her right shoulder, avoiding the new ink. Let's go, she commanded, walking past the bald big guy. When he spoke to both of us, still counting the money Rose handed him. Keep those clean, he stated, not lifting his eyes. Rude. Desira sashayed to the door. Her walk is much more provocative than Rose's. Her style, her whole demeanor, it's all different. More sinful, sensual. She seemed monitory. Someone I would have remembered meeting or even seen in Rose. She jumped into Rose's Jeep, eyeing me to hurry up. I didn't want to be left here, so I scurried to the passenger side. Desira turned the Jeep on and changed the tunes to rock. Definitely not Rose. We met once before, she started to say. The night Rose killed that dog. She told me, vexation in her tone, drawing out the word dog in such displeasure. I'm sure I would have remembered meeting you, I whispered out, eyeing her from the corners of my eyes. She chuckled to herself, keeping her eyes on the road. She sat so straight, confident even, with her shoulders rolled back, pushing out her chest. Rose told me how crazy she is, how she kills for enjoyment. I didn't want her pissed at me, I wanted to live. That was the day Rose let me out, she confessed, continuing her story. I am the true Rose, the Rose she was meant to be. But instead I was pushed to the darkest part of her brain. A maze deep in Rose's mind built to hide me. She paused for dramatic effect. At the moment Rose killed that dog, her pure little heart couldn't take the pain. She killed something innocent, and so the door was opened. Desira's eyes pierced mine as if remembering the exact moment. Joy lighting the hues of her eyes. I'm the one who peeks out when Rose is scared or angry. I'm the one who protects her. I'm stronger and more fierce than Rose could ever be. She needs me more than she knows. I'm so confused I still don't remember seeing this side of Rose. I'm the one who dragged the dog off the road, she plainly stated, dumbing it down for me. How? I whispered, still not wanting to poke the bear. This gained me a smirk from her direction. I'm the personality Rose is. I was born a killer, and she denied that part of herself. So here I am, she cooed. But how do you know me? I finally asked, becoming a little more bolder, yet still sounding non-threatening. Desira loosely held the seeing wheel with one hand, her fingers drumming to the sound of the beat. I can see through Rose's eyes, I can feel what she feels. That's how I know you mean a lot to her. I was starting to get really irritated. She wasn't answering my question. She brushed over it like nothing, until she didn't. Because every time Rose did something out of character, that was me. She smiled, a wicked tooth-filled, menacing grin. Do you really think Rose would have dragged that dog from the road? She quipped. Its guts were all over the Jeep. She chuckled to herself, finding this funny. I sat there with my hands in my lap, fiddling with my fingers, trying to remember that night she said she came out. Think, I repeated to myself, picturing the accident. The music blasted from the radio, distracting Rose and myself. We were belting the words to the latest summer hit, looking at one another as we sang and danced, rather than paying attention to the road. Oh my God! Rose screamed, slamming on her brakes, after taking a quick glance at the road. I hadn't seen the Great Dane walking onto the highway. Rose swerved, but it wasn't fast enough. I never truly saw what happened until it was too late. The thud of its body rolled under the passenger wheel, causing my body to catapult in the seat. The seatbelt snapped my body back, securing me in place. The squeal of her brakes burned, leaving the air tainted. We sat there for a second, stunned at what just happened. Rose's trembling arm turned the radio off, then stilled. She silently sobbed, realizing what had just happened. She just killed someone's pet, someone's family member. All because we were too distracted being wild teens. When her sobs stopped, her body stilled, she looked at me wide-eyed. She started turning her head side to side, looking at the scene around us. When she looked back at me, "What just happened?" Rose asked, very monotone, almost emotionless. She blinked a few times, looking in the rearview mirrors. "We just hit a dog." I softly sobbed. I know how sensitive her heart is, this is going to break her. She bit the corner of her lip and turned to see its body, in the middle of the road. "I will go move it," I told her, knowing she wouldn't be able to stomach the sight. The poor thing looked like roadkill. I began to unbuckle my seatbelt until Rose's hand stopped me. "I got it," she said, not an ounce of hesitation in her words. I always thought that seemed a little weird, but I never thought anything after that. I would have rather forgotten than remembered honestly. Hitting that dog made me feel sad all over again. We were so stupid. "You were willing to clean the mess," Desira said in admiration. "You're special, Dina, someone who didn't judge but took action." "I am," I muttered quizzically. "You are," she answered back, pulling into the school's parking lot. She pulled right up front, stopping in front of the front doors. "I hope we meet again, Dina. After all, we are soul sisters." She smirked, giving me a wink. I never really thought of it that way. But she is part of Rose, and well, Rose has always been my best friend and soul sister. I hopped out of the Jeep, looking back into her killer eyes. "Goodbye, Desira." I took a step back from the Jeep. "Until next time." She eyes me, pulling out of the lot. I walked back into the high school, needing to cover for Rose's absences. The first thing I'm gonna do is walk to the office and let them know Rose is sick. I mean, she is mental. A split personality with a serial killer. Who would have thought? "Catch me if you can, Desira POV, please let me out," Rose shouted, her mind fatigued from having to fight me. "No," I spit, thrashing my anger towards her, causing her body to tumble to the ground. In my head, "You locked me away, made it impossible for the man I love to use me. And now you want me to pity you. Keep dreaming, sweetheart." I cursed her with disdain evident in my voice. "I didn't know you were in here," she cried. "I didn't know any of this," she pleaded. When Rose began to fight with the little strength she had, only causing me a mild headache. "You know what, Rose, I think you need time." I smirked, knowing exactly what I planned to do. "I think a decade in that dark mind maze would toughen you up." I chuckled, enjoying the fact she would be pure torture. "No," she screamed, trying to fight. It was so pathetic. "Please, Desira," Rose screeched, her voice becoming softer, her last plea for help. "I'm not sorry, Rose, this will do you good. It's my time to roam." I stayed, closing my eyes, focusing my strength, sending Rose flying in the air. Her body flew back, bringing her head, arms and legs forward. The seat force causing her body to look like a rag doll. Her screams of protest echoed in the dark, until all was silent. The door separating our souls snapped shut, locking, leaving little old Rose trapped. I placed a barrier in front of the door, making sure she could only be released when I was ready. The tattoo was the final straw. I would never again feel Eros' seductive dance in my mind. She took that from me. She took him from me. Our destined mate. Our king. But he needed time to cool. Rose wasn't ready and he wanted her. Not me. Pulling the Jeep into the driveway of Daddy Jack's house. I needed to grab a few things and search for any clues as to where Dad went. Finding the spare key hidden above the door, I walked into a dusty smell. This place is always spotless, as if no one lived here, unlike the cellar. I passed through the house, heading for his office. The documents I need will be in there, hidden. His office door was open, shockingly. Normally he locked everything, tighter than a water seal. Paranoia was always his strongest characteristic. In our world, it's a necessity. I went to the left of his desk, picking up a sharp letter opener. From there, I took 2 side steps, putting me in the exact spot. Kneeling down, I stabbed the letter opener into the carpet, ripping up a patch of floor to reveal a trap compartment. Inside lay false documents, a new identity, passports and money. Not just mine, but one for Lucuas as well. Too bad he won't be needing his. However, I will be taking his so no evidence is left behind. Can't have the police tracing me down so easily. Taking the documents, I noticed loose papers on top of Jack's desk. When a wicked idea crept into my brain, I hurried to the desk chair, pushing it out of the way. I pulled open the middle drawer, grabbing a pen. I snatched a paper and started to write. Slipping the letter into an envelope, I sealed the letter with a lick. Yes, I'm leaving DNA, that's the plan, that's the hint. I took my leave, heading to the Violence home. I still needed to take care of a few more things. The house was silent just after 4:30. When I walked into the kitchen grabbing food, heading to Rose's room to not be disturbed. I just needed to avoid her family and my god-awful mother until nightfall. A knock on the door pulled my attention from the storyboard on the wall. Rose has an artistic talent, something I could never accomplish. I opened the door to see Joe, Rose's fake father. Hey Rosebud, your mother told me to tell you dinner's at 7. He smiled, thinking I was his weak, pathetic daughter. I wanted to look at him with such disgust it pained me. That or stab him with a knife. But I couldn't, I had to play it cool, he had to think I was Rose. Thanks, Dad. I tried to lighten my voice. But I'm not feeling too good. I told him, acting sick. He looked at me with soft eyes, raising his palm to my forehead, feeling if I had a temperature. I of course didn't, so I coughed a little. I think I'm just going to go to bed. I told him, trying to close the door. "Okay, I love you." He told me as the door closed in his face, as if I could ever say it back to him. Dinner came and went. I heard Rose's annoying brothers. But no one left, the house still smelling of dessert and beer. When the only thing making a sound was the living room TV. I took that as my cue to check out the surroundings. The coast was clear, so I grabbed the bag I picked for the go. I opened the bedroom window before walking to the door. Lighting a match, I set fire to the bed, piled with clothes. The smell of the match tickled my senses, I loved it. I closed the door, letting the flames run wild but keeping it hidden so no one smelled the smoke. The storyboard had to go, Rose had to go. I snuck my way to the stairs, walking with stealth steps. The Violence brothers and Joe looked as if they were sleeping, with beers scattered around the area. Not a lot, just a few, enough for each to have at least 4. I grabbed the Jeep keys and opened the door. By the time I tossed the bag into the back seat, I heard a scream. It must have been my mother. I hopped in the Jeep, turned around and grabbed a black rose from the back seat. I threw the rose so it landed on the sidewalk as I drove. Emergency vehicles all racing towards the house, its fire now engulfing the roof. I pulled off to the side, a ways down the street, watching as each Violence coughed and hacked, running from the house. The 4 of them stood, shocked and screaming. God, it was a beautiful sight to see, so much pain, as they screamed for their unseen daughter. Everything was working out perfectly. I sat and waited until the right sheriff car arrived. Sheriff Randy stepped out of the car, rushing to Rose's parents. He looked frantic, preparing to run into the fire. That was until a few firefighters stopped him. He looked frustrated as he yelled commands. I just chuckled to myself when my eyes caught sight of none other than the demon himself, Eros. He stood, leaning against a tree, holding a pair of periwinkle blue panties between his fingers, fiddling with them in his hands, before bringing them to the tip of his nose. I recognized those panties like it was yesterday. The first time Eros called to us, the first time he sent shivers down my spine, the first time he claimed us as his. Rose didn't want to give in, but with a little push I helped her decide. I could feel the pull, the need to be with him. He was ours and we are his. He just needed to love me more. I left them all behind me. This was my new start, my opportunity to be free. I just needed to do one last thing before leaving town. Heading down the street, it felt like a ghost town. Everyone ran towards the dancing flames, making the town square empty, making the police station empty, meaning I can do what I needed to do. I pulled up to the front of the police station, grabbing my last rose and the letter I wrote for Mr. Sheriff Randy. The building lights were off, but those doors opened. I walked into the empty office, heading to the door, labeled Sheriff Randy. I placed the letter upon his desk, putting the black rose on top. When I turned to leave, I was staring directly at his murder board. Copies of evidence collected, all on display right in front of me. I glanced over the board, noticing a picture of me, Rose. A picture of Lucuas and Jack, mixed with other victims. It all looked very organized. I ran my eyes over the evidence, noticing one of the stupid lockets. Lucuas made his girls wear those, making it his calling card. Pathetic if you ask me. I brushed my thumb over the locket, resting in an evidence bag, pinned to the wall. Remembering the kill gave me such excitement. I could feel the smile bloom on my lips, remembering her dying breath. Well, I needed to leave before anyone caught me. So I took off to the door, leaving this place behind. I needed to find a new hunting ground, a new kill zone. So I left Silix in the dust, ready to blossom into the killer I was born to be. Goodbye Dark Mind Maze, hello freedom. Black Rose Sheriff Randy POV. The fire engulfed the violence home. The air saturated in dark smoke. Mr. and Mrs. Violence cradled one another watching in agonizing pain. Not only was their home ablaze but Rose was missing. I tried to run into the flames to bring their baby girl to their arms. But the fire squad forcibly restrained me. Apart from the cries, the only sound echoing in the air was the snaps and crackles. The home structure slowly crumbling under the blazing heat. Rose's screams fell silent if she was in the fire. She was gone. The brothers stood shocked, watching as their childhood home disappears. Both shocked and scared, desperate for the sound or sight of their baby sister. As the last firefighters left the flames, they came out empty-handed. The little Rose was gone. When I hung my head, readying myself to cry for the loss of her, I saw it. A black rose laying disheveled on the concrete, barely visible from the flames, eliminating the surrounding area. I picked up the rose, holding it in my hand, protecting it from the scene unfolding. After the house fire was put out by the fire team, everyone left, as I escorted the Violence family to the police station. After arriving, the station was lit with people, all ready to help the family in their time of need. I loved how this little community pulled together in times of chaos, ready to help in any way possible. I left the grieving family to the hall of support, eagerly wanting to help. These people could offer more love and support than I ever could. So I left them to head to my office. When I flicked on the light, its florets flickered. Tell them solid light brightened the room. I immediately saw the black rose sitting on my top. I took a seat, setting the rose I found at the fire off to the side. Laying under the new rose was an envelope, labeled Sheriff Randy. I ripped the side of the envelope, opening its width. Shaking the envelope like a salt shaker, a letter fell into the palm of my hand. Folded nice and neat, as if the creases were made perfectly. The crisp paper unfolded, the pressure from my fingertips creased the paper. Dear Sheriff Randy, in case you haven't figured out, I will give you a hint. Jack Finley was the hummingbird killer. Lucuas was his successor, and your Rose is dead. Tonight was only the beginning. When you find a body marked with a black rose, you will know it was me. So Sheriff, let's play a game, come find me. Sincerely, the hummingbird killer. P.S. Catch me if you can. As I read the last line, Deputy Henson knocked on my door. Hey Randy, he said as if about to give me bad news. What's up? I asked. Just got a call to the Finley home. Had Jackson go check it out. He found Lucuas Finley in the cellar, his throat cut ear to ear. Damn it, he was our lead to Jack. But a thought occurred to me. Was there a black rose anywhere? Henson eyed me suspiciously, his brows furrowed. Yeah, on his chest. How did you know? The hummingbird killer. That's how. Like these? I asked, gesturing to the two airing on my desk. Yeah, he admitted, now curious. Exactly like those. I looked at the murder board, seeing the mystery unfold. Jack started it all, passing on his sick mind to his son Lucuas. Jack fled when he realized we were closing in on him. Lucuas killed Sage in training to take his father's place. The mystery man kills Lucuas, taking the hummingbird title. Rose almost drowns finding Sage's body. James dies in the woods with Rose. Rose was killed, lost in the fire set by the hummingbird killer. So who is the mystery man? More questions filled my brain. I leaped into action, taking the letter, placing it in an evidence bag with the envelope. I took another 2 bags, placing the black roses in them. New evidence to catalog, new leads. Tomorrow I will have these sent out to collect any DNA. With any luck, maybe we will get lucky. Randy, line 1. The receptionist hollered to me. It's been a week since I sent the new evidence to the lab. I've been waiting for a phone call with the results impatiently. This is Randy, I said, fiddling with some paperwork on my desk. Hey Randy, Lucy chimed. Drawing my full attention to her voice, I was beyond ever to hear what she had to say. What do you have for me, Lucy? I rushed, not wanting to make small talk. Geez, calm down, she sassed. Ran the black roses for DNA and came up with smudged prints. So that was a dead end. I audibly sigh, not liking the bad news. I just needed one break, just something to point me in the right direction. However, she chirped. The letter we got quite a bit from. Yes, this was what I needed. What is it, Lucy? I impatiently muttered. The handwriting was that of a lefty, and aside from your fingerprints, Jack Finley's was on the paper, along with his daughter's Rose. Rose's saliva was also on the adhesive of the envelope. She licked it. Lucy stated the facts, proud of her findings. But it only left me with questions. Rose licked it and it had her fingerprints. The fire marshal gave me his report a few days after their investigation. The fire of the Violence House started in Rose's room. Her body was never found, her remains could have been cremated, or she wasn't there. Her Jeep was missing, the family reported it stolen after the fire. It wasn't far-fetched, since Rose left her keys in the ignition. Could that have been Rose? But the letter said Rose was dead. Was she missing? Did we need to find her body? Or is the letter misleading? Could Rose still be alive? It feels like with every piece of new evidence more questions arise. Could I have overlooked the killer? This was the beginning of a case that would drive me insane. I had to search for the Black Rose. I have to bring justice to the Violence family. I needed to bring down the killer who thought they could play me. Rose Violence, or should I say Rose Finley. I'm coming for you. Epilogue, Sheriff Randy POV. It's been 10 years since the Sulix murders. Since receiving that letter from the hummingbird killer. Every day I searched, finding a new body, finding another Black Rose. Till one day the FBI showed up on my doorstep, asking question about the Black Rose killer. Why? Because I had inquired about bodies all over the country. The hummingbird killer became the serial killer of the decade, with a total of 76 bodies found. Throughout the years the killer antagonized me, sending clues as to where the next body could be found. That's when the FBI asked for me to join their team. I knew this case better than anyone. I was evidence they needed, shining light on their Black Rose killer, known in my letters as the hummingbird killer. The past decade has left us on a chase, searching for her. The little clues she leaves behind, from black roses to love letters and clues as to her next victim. She changed the game her father started. The victims used to be women, blonde hair, blue eyes, sexually restrained, found with their hands and ankles tied. But she chose a different kind of victim. Men. It only makes sense for her to go after men instead of women. Her sexual gratification comes from them. Her victims, all blonde hair and blue eyes, just like Lucuas and James. That's right, James. A black rose was left upon his grave. Left there for his mother to find when she came back to cry. The black rose on James's grave was my second clue. Apart from the rose left on Lucuas' chest, James had one on his grave, leading me to the flower shop that has cameras showing Rose purchasing the small bouquet of flowers. Black. The DNA she left lead us to her. But not a single clue as to where she was going was left behind. Dina Baker, Rose's best friend, went missing 2 months after Rose left town. Her family was in a panic as to her disappearance of their youngest daughter. With Lucuas dead and Jack on the run, life stood still. Unsure as to what happened to Dina, she was missing and there was no body to be found. Until an envelope came to my office, sent from Dallas, Texas. An envelope filled with black rose petals. A letter, giving me the address of her latest victim. I remember in that moment the dread I felt, thinking it was Dina's body. The letter read, "You're not trying." Written in blood from her latest kill. Clue I prayed wasn't Dina's. After sending everything to the lab, I was pleased to hear it wasn't hers but a male's. My guess, her M.O. Blonde hair, blue eyes. That's the exact moment the FBI flagged me down. The Violence family had left Sulix, closing down Joe's shop. The townspeople blamed them for the hurt they felt. The family took up residence in a city outside New York, trying to run from the fact their daughter was dead or a murder. The FBI keeps an eye on the family just in case Rose ever decides to make an appearance. But over the past decade, all have been silent, but her kills keep coming. I often visit the family, not for personal reasons but more business. My team leader Lewis thought it would be better if a person they knew checked on them. More willing to open up, I guess. There's a lot of psychology techniques used in the FBI. I just made it because Rose thought it would be fun to play with me. She was mistaken. Because I wasn't one to play with. I'm not a toy she can use and abuse. I wasn't going to let her use me as a puppet. My arms and legs had no strings attached. I was going to hunt her down like the animal she has become, because today was a special day. Today we caught a break. Because Jack Finley sat in an interrogation room. With a smug smile draped over his lips, he waited patiently. Not giving in to the pressure he was caught, he would be put to death. Justice would be served for all his victims, all those helpless girls. Randy, are you ready? Lewis asked my team leader. Jack asked for a familiar face, and I know why. After you, I stated, standing from my desk. The interrogation room was small, the walls painted gray with dim lights. The large double mirror covered one wall, the metal table bolted to the floor. His hands cuffed to the bar secured to the tabletop. He leaned back in his chair, his posture perfectly poised. Randy, it's good to see you. He acted as if we were old pals. The disgust my body felt when my name left his lips courses through my veins, igniting my fury. Can't say the same, Jack. I tried to keep my cool, but he turned Rose into a monster. He turned the sweet little girl I once carried on my shoulders into a cold-blooded killer. Now, Randy, I'm here bearing gifts. He stated, smuggle, trying to ironic the situation. Unless you would like her to keep killing. He coolly added, his pupils dilating with excitement. He loved the monster he created. Every word that left his mouth made my blood boil. He was a manipulative mastermind, an evil parasite, who leached on his daughter's soul. By all means, bear your gifts. My words came off more bumptious than intended. I needed to calm myself, I needed his information. Jack sucked his teeth, his avert attitude crawled under my skin. How many bodies have you found? He asked, all-knowing. This isn't the Wizard of Oz. But he thinks he's untouchable. Lewis decides to interject at that moment. He stood in the corner, observing the interrogation. We asked the questions, Jack. He added harshly. Jack's eyes flashed a dark and hooded glow, vexation laced in his voice. That's Jack, to you. His eyes locked with Lewis. A starring contest silenced the room. I needed to get his attention, I needed him to talk. 76. I stated, causing Jack's eyes to land upon mine. His lips stretched into a dark, wicked, sly smile. You're missing 7. He stated, supercilious. God, this man irked me. Give me a deal and I tell you where they are. Jack's impervious demeanor filled the room. I wasn't the one allowed to give deals, but Lewis, however, was. Show us good faith. Give us a name. Lewis asked, still leaning against the wall next to the door. Jack's eyes looked between Lewis and myself. He was thinking, playing out his next move like a chess game. I'll do you one better. He directed his eyes to Lewis. I will give you Desira for my freedom. He stated, not missing a beat. Who's Desira? Lewis moves from the wall, standing next to the table looking down at Jack. Who's Desira? Lewis asked, intrigued. Was she a victim? Was she the one who took Dina? Or was she an accomplice? Jack's face lit up like the 4th of July, thrilled with the fact he had information we needed. You have no idea, do you? He asked condescendingly. His eyes bounced back and forth between Lewis and myself, the two of us waiting for his words to unleash the floodgates. Desira is Rose, he stated. Or rather, a part of her. She has a split personality. With his words, my cerebral buzzed with facts connecting dots. Rose was right-handed, Desira was left. Rose cried if an animal was hurt. Desira enjoyed the torture. Rose was awkward, Desira a seductress. Rose had a good heart and stood up to those who did not. Desira killed, taking Everhart's last beat. Desira enjoyed the kill, while Rose couldn't hurt a fly. You did this to her. I whispered harshly. barely containing my anger. Jack just smiled, enjoying our reactions. I only unleashed what she was born to be. He calmly stated. He was a monster who created monsters. All because the women he loved didn't love him. Lucuas killed because he thought his mother abandoned him. Only Jack killed her, one of his hummingbirds. Desira, she was a different kind of monster. She didn't kill because she had a vendetta, she killed because she liked the pain. She liked watching as the life left their eyes. She enjoyed watching them bleed. Where is she? And you have your deal. Lewis agreed. Put it in writing. Jack sternly told Lewis. It only took him a total of 15 minutes to get the approval, a contract stating he was free. When Jack signed the dotted line, his lips spilled. Motel West Side, New York. Jack licked his lips. She has a friend. He continued. Could it be, was it Dina? Was she being held captive all these years? Our tactical team stormed the motel, only a few miles away from the violence residence. She was right under our noses this whole time, hidden in plain sight. When the door bust, the two suspects tried to fight, attacking but ultimately failing to escape. We had them in custody. The moment Desire walked into the FBI, she saw Jack eyeing him, now with hate but respect, understanding and love. Her father, her creator, her demise. When she finally saw me, she smirked, her eyes filled with mischief. As she stood in front of me, hands cuffed behind her back, escorted by two officers holding her elbows. Hello, Randy. She whispered. Subduction filled her words. I glared at her, clenching my jaw. I wanted nothing more than to press my gun against her temple. Good luck getting any information. She snickered just before her body fell limp. The officers behind her caught off guard. Her head fell towards me, her eyes rolled to the back of her head. The whites of her eyes the only color visible. Was she having a seizure? Not a second later, her head lifted, our eyes met. The look of confusion knitted her eyebrows. Her eyes filled with tears not yet falling down her cheeks. Randy. Her soft voice whispered. Sweet and innocent. Where am I? She asked, sounding groggy. What happened? She questioned, tugging at her wrists locked in cuffs. Panic took over her face, her eyes buzzing around the FBI building. Rose. I asked, mimicking her softness. If this is truly her, then she has no idea what is happening. She doesn't know what her other half did. What do you remember? I asked, keeping my tone low as to not scare her anymore. I remember. Home. And Desira. Locking me away. She spoke slowly, trying to remember. This was 10 years ago after all. But she knew of Desira, she knew of her murderous side. She didn't tell anyone. Rose, it's been 10 years. I looked at her face, tears now flowing free. Desira has killed 83 people. I tried to break the news to her as painlessly as possible. But I could see the hurt in her eyes, the fear she felt. Is my family okay? She huffed, trying to hold in her cries. I shook my head yes. She didn't need to know of their pain. She wasn't ready for that. The officers took her to an interrogation room, cuffing her hands to the bar. She shook in fright, not understanding the world around her. This was not the home she was used to. This was all new to her, all a different time period. I looked older, she looked older. A silent sob left her lips as a psychiatrist stepped into the room. I sat there watching as Rose was told her horrible past. To all she had no recollection of, the hurt in her eyes told all. She was broken. Desira locked her way and destroyed who she was. When the psychiatrist was done, I sat there holding her hands, trying to comfort her in any way I could. This was my Rose, the little girl who loved me. Today she would never see freedom again, she would never leave a cell. She was innocent, but she had no control, and Desira would kill again. 3 days later, I received a call from the mental facility housing Rose. Since the day she was caught, Desira hasn't shown her face. And now she never will. Rose hung herself in the middle of the night. A letter she left for me filled with guilt, pain and love. Dina sat in the cell next to hers. Desira brainwashed the innocent child she was. To the world she was a killer, a psychopath. But to me she will always be the little girl next door.